Now, a couple of recommendations when you're mixing paint. It's fun to have a palette knife because it will help you not waste your paint, and it helps you control your mix a little bit better, because sometimes when I see people mixing with a brush, all this paint gets in their bristles and then it's mixing in maybe without your knowledge, or you just have less control over the mix, and that can be frustrating. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is make brown with just the primary colors. And then the second thing I'm going to do is make brown utilizing black. So first thing I usually do is I make orange. So I will mix my primary red and my primary yellow. And notice I'm just sort of mixing it together with the palette knife. Grab a little bit of each color and it should look orange. So make sure you have enough yellow. A lot of times the red is stronger than the yellow, so you need a little extra yellow. Okay, so I have a pretty decent orange there. And then from there, what I do is gradually add blue. Gradually. So the blue is like like you don't have as much blue in your mix. Now you'll notice that it will start to look brown. At first, it's just going to look almost like a burnt orange. And then the more you add, the more it's going to start to look a little darker. And then you'll also be able to see where you need to adjust. So see how it's starting to look like more of a light brown, more blue, and it might get a greenish tint to it. That just means you have a lot of yellow in your orange, which is okay, but it's going to give a green undertone because blue and yellow make green. So then what you need to do there is just add more red, balance it out. And then it will start to look more brown again. Okay, so until if it still has green undertones, add more red. And then you're good. Now you have a nice shade of brown. And you can add more blue to darken it a little bit. But that's kind of about where it's going to get you, where you're going to get with the brown. But see how it's brown, you know, you're good. You have a nice shade of brown, almost like a basic umber shade of brown. Now, if you want to make it a little bit more like sienna, you're just adding more red to get a red undertone in the brown, and that will give you more of a sienna brown. So see how it's still brown, but it has red undertones. So then that's going to be more of a sienna. And then if you want it a little bit less like that, you know, add more yellow to give it more of a golden undertone. So you're basically just playing with the ratios here to create some different flavors of brown. So there you go. Now you can do the same thing with mixing your yellow and your red. So you got your orange again as a starting point. I like using orange as a starting point. And then what I do is I will slowly add black to that. But it's the same thing you would do with the blue. You know, like the black is gonna bring that brown a little quicker than the blue. And you won't get as much of that green undertone that you do when you mix the blue in. So then again, you have to balance that with the red. So the black, I feel like the black gets there a little quicker. And then with the black, you can make it darker. So I can go into like a really dark shade of brown with the black on hand. Whereas with the blue, you know, you're getting brown, but it won't be able to get as dark as you can when you're using the black. So this is like a really black, like a dark shade of brown with the black. So, you know, I do recommend using the black. And then when you're playing with your paint and you're getting it all together, you know, you could always add your white in there when you're ready to create those tan colors. So see how adding the white to that brown gives you a nice tan color. But again, if you add it to the one that has more black in it, it's going to give you more of a gray undertone to your brown color. So you can play around with that. And the more, you know, you're just playing with the different ratios here of orange as a starting point, and then using black and blue to darken it into that brown. And then you can pull in your white to bring it into those lighter tan shades or gray tones. So this is just really basic. Again, using a palette knife to mix and experiment is really helpful. So make sure you do that.